Hi, Sarah here. Welcome back. So, I am commencing a deck study for the Gentle Tarot. I wanted to record some videos throughout this process and document how it's going and just share it with you all. It could be a way for me to practice just talking on the fly without planning too far ahead, and also, again, just documenting where I'm at now versus where I might be like 3, 4, 5, 8 weeks from now. So as I've mentioned, I just finished doing a deck study for the Muse Tarot. Since like May, I just drew one card at a time and free wrote on each card, noticing the symbolism and any meaning I could glean from the cards. I found a lot of value in that deck study. I actually tried doing that same format again for another deck recently, but I just wasn't connecting with the deck after the first attempt, and I also didn't feel like doing the same exact format again. So I wanted to switch it up, but I didn't really know how. So I happen to have two pals. One of them has a tarot channel now. Her name is Josephine or Jo. Her tarot username is Pointed Logic Tarot, so please follow her on YouTube. She actually just made a video about the Gentle Tarot because the Gentle Tarot is her favorite deck and her first ever tarot deck. So she made a video explaining a lot of reasons why the Gentle Tarot is an amazing deck. And simultaneously, one of our other friends, her name's Christine just got a copy of the Gentle Tarot, and she reached out to me if I wanted to study the deck together. So here we are. We actually just finished our first VC, our first voice chat of the Gentle Tarot deck study, me, Christine, and Jo. And because we have it on like a Discord server, anyone in that Discord server can also join. So someone else randomly just joined as well and participated and just lurked in the chat as we discussed the tarot deck. So Jo has studied the Gentle Tarot twice already, and she shared some of the methods that she did to study the deck the first couple of times. And it's fun that she's still here for the third time to study the deck along with us. Christine and I shared why we wanted to study the tarot at this time. And this question of why do you want to study the deck can be a good question because I can feel pressured to want to make a deep experience or deep meaning from every single deck that I have. But the fact is, not every single deck is like deep dive worthy, and that's okay. It's okay to have connections with decks that are just, they're good. You don't have to dive deep into the symbolism to get like good meaning from them. So the first question that we discussed together is, why do we want to study the Gentle Tarot as opposed to just whipping it out and doing readings together? So we talked about how this deck by Mari is so full of expression and so full of love. It's so vibrant and so radiant. And it feels like there's so much symbolism and meaning and history and context behind these cards to dive into. For me especially, I tend to not feel connected to decks that depict a lot of nature and animals, flora and fauna. I also tend to not like decks, or I don't know, not vibe with decks that are really going on the hype train right now. If something is really popular and talked about a lot because it just came out and or it's just really loved by the masses at the time, I tend to feel less inclined to want to study it or work with it because I feel like I'm hearing so much about it at the same time that I want to get into it. I tend to vibe with things better after the trend has died down, after like the hype has kind of settled down a bit. I feel like then I feel more inclined to study it because, or work with it. Then I can focus more on what I like, and I feel like I can take my time with it. And I don't feel pressured to keep up with the trends happening right now and whatever other people are saying about it right now. And it's valuable because all of this content and all of this discussion about the Gentle Tarot exists out there, but because it's not in my face and I'm surrounded by it all the time, I can choose to seek it out. I also wrote this deck off for a while because, again, I thought I wouldn't connect with it, but you know, in this stage of my life and in this stage of my tarot and sort of spiritual journey, like I would like to connect to more decks that are featuring more flora and fauna. And I love that this is made by an Indigenous person, by someone who living in Alaska as well. We pointed out that we don't see Alaskan flora and fauna depicted much. We do see a lot of decks depicting North American flora and fauna. But from an Indigenous perspective, not as common. From Alaska and, you know, other areas besides like the US, the continental US. Another reason I wanted to study this Gentle Tarot is to find more meaning in the cards and find more personal associations with the cards. So we discussed how like what makes our bonds with decks so special is that certain cards start jumping out to us. We start associating them with certain times in our lives, certain memories, certain experiences, or certain symbols, or colors, or figures, or animals. They all pop out to us, and it just makes our connection with them so personal. I think this is a really great way to explore myself through this tarot deck. I'm very curious, like, what I might find in these cards, that I can actually relate to as a city slicker, born and raised in suburbs, and even now living in kind of a concrete jungle that is California, Los Angeles. And one more reason, motivation for studying a deck is to just learn the language of the deck. Again, this goes back to, learning the symbolism and applying it to our lives, but truly I am fascinated by the story, the themes of this deck. This deck seems so cohesive, from the color palette to the figures, the ways that the animals are drawn and depicted. It feels like there's so much story to uncover in this deck and so much language to learn here. So those are reasons that we shared in why doing a deck study. Again, if you are doing a deck study, it's good to get clear on why you want to study. I hope that you are studying this deck because you feel like there's something that you can learn from it, instead of something that you feel you have to do because other people expect you to be a super deep diver tarot reader or anything like that. The second topic or second question I wanted to share is, what is our intention or ideas for the study? So for us, we are going to voice chat every Thursday evening at like 5:30 my time, Pacific time. And right now, since we're starting off, we don't want to commit to like a super structured plan. We don't want to plan out like we're going to do all the suits on this day and then the court cards on another day. We just want to like feel things out at the beginning, since this is very new for us. Our friendship with each other is still pretty new. We just want to do this like super casual. So that's another tip that I want to share, especially if you're like me and you tend to feel like, ooh, I want to make a grand plan and I want to have all these ideas of doing 20 different things and it's going to be so glorious and perfect. Like, you know what? At the very beginning, keep it simple. Keep it simple and sustainable for the time being. As we build on it, then we can add more steps and more activities. So for now, what are we going to do for the study? Like I said, we're going to voice chat every Thursday in the Sass Witches Discord server. That's how all of us met and where we congregate the most. We might draw certain cards every week to talk about them. We might draw the cards either between voice chat sessions, voice chat meetings, or maybe at the beginning of the session, who knows? For me, I want to start with going through the deck and finding which cards I connect with versus which ones I just feel neutral about versus which ones that I don't really connect with or like at this time. It can be a great exploration to see which cards already vibe with my experiences and my understanding, and which cards do I feel resistant about or defensive about, or just I don't like them right now. We also discussed sharing spreads from the Gentle Tarot book. So the edition of the deck that I have is the first edition, second printing, and the other two have other editions of the deck, like the linen edition and other editions that I don't really know off the top of my head. With this deck, I only have this little guidebook. I might buy the bigger guidebook sometime in the future because I hear it has a lot of great information. But for now, I like this guidebook as is, and I just want to keep exploring it at my own pace instead of feeling pressured to get the bigger guidebook and internalize what the author is saying right away. Anyway, I mentioned these different editions because I guess in that bigger guidebook that I don't have, there are spreads that Mari created for the Gentle Tarot. And so in future deck study voice chats or meetings, we could share some of those spreads from the Gentle Tarot guidebook and do readings even for each other or for ourselves. I also have a couple of books that have plenty of activities. So one that Christine just got because I influenced her is called 21 Ways to Read a Tarot Card. It's funny because I borrowed this and read it like the first 1 or 2 years of learning tarot. My fridge is going, it's making ice right now, it's doing its job. So I read this book, 21 Ways, like in the first year or two of learning tarot. I took some notes and then I bought the physical version. I haven't opened it until this year. 2-3 years later, I'm reopening this book. And it really is chock full of information. I really, really like this as a how-to tarot book. It explains so much more in reading tarot than just memorizing meanings. Every week, maybe we'll go through certain activities and share them with the class and maybe do them together. This is another fun way of doing activities, you know? We can do these activities with friends and just make the exploration process so much more fun. The other book that I have where we can also find activities or things to do with the tarot is this book called Your Tarot Toolkit by Tom Benjamin. This is a workbook for building clear, precise, confident readings. It has exercises on how to develop our own meanings and associations for the cards. So for example, one activity that I'm working through right now, I say right now, but it's been like months since I picked this up, but it's okay. There's never a deadline for anything here. Using each major arcanum to answer the questions what, where, why, who, when, how. You pull the magician, for example. Let's say the question you asked is related to who. So what type of person would the magician card be referring to? You ask a question of when, and you draw the devil. What exactly does the devil mean in the context of a when question? I'm curious to look at these activities from this workbook that I haven't opened in a while, so I might pull from some of these activities in our future voice chat meetings. So yeah, those are some intentions and ideas for the study. Meeting every week. Between meetings, we might do our own readings or studies with the cards. When we come in together in the voice chat in the meeting, we might do more activities and just discuss more about the cards. So very free-flowing, very DIY, you know. Again, like I said, no big plans for structure. We just like to build something that lasts for a bit and that we can all actually enjoy. Sometimes placing too much structure or too much expectations on stuff it can suck the joy out of things. I know from experience. And the last topic I'll mention is opening our intentions for the deck study or just doing like an introductory activity or spread. So apparently Mari had actually written an opening intention for working with the Gentle Tarot. The opening intention is either an extra card included with the deck, or it's also written in the big guidebook that, again, I don't have. So they're shared in the chat. So we read this opening intention that Mari wrote for working with a Gentle Tarot, noted any sentences or paragraphs that stood out to us. And after we read and discussed the intention and opened our hearts to doing this deck study and who we might become and what we might learn and all that good stuff, Jo shared that she associated 3 different cards from the Gentle Tarot with this opening intention. So I pulled out the 3 major arcana that she mentioned because all the stuff that we talked about here was so fascinating. I also want to share that information with you. So one card that Jo applied to this opening intention was the Judgment card. This came up because one sentence in the opening intention mentions, shake off the dry scaling skin, serpent shine, belly slithering on the earth. And the Judgment card, as we see, does depict a snake. And she pointed out that there is snake skin down here. Before, when I've looked through the deck, I didn't pin this as snake skin. It looks like clouds, right? But if we look closer, it can seem like snake skin. So that's a very clever choice on... Oh my god, my earring fell down. I don't know how that happened. So very cool choice on Mari's part to draw the snakeskin in a way that looks like clouds, looks like nebula. Another card that came up applying to this opening intention was the Justice card. The sentence in the opening intention that Jo associated this card with, Mother, I hear your heartbeat. I release the tension from my abdomen. I release the tension from my womb space. Jo pointed out that the bigger guidebook mentions that this is a pregnant belly back here. I would never have guessed that this hill could be a belly or abdomen of any sort. I thought that is a really clever inclusion. What it makes me think of, knowing or thinking that this is an abdomen, is that when we think of justice, right, we do think of fairness. We think of like what is right, what is wrong, what is best for the long term, thinking about consequences. So including a belly here in this image, in this illustration, makes me think of that sometimes we try to use our head and our heart, but sometimes the best way to feel what is right just comes from our gut, just comes from our gut instinct. And so the sentence of, I release the tension from my abdomen, maybe if we release the tension from our abdomen, we can try to relax a little bit and try to just trust ourselves in knowing what might be the right choice, even when both of them seem super equal, like these two looking the same weight. We also pointed out the seeds and the life basically germinating from this ground here. And we talked about how like consequences do mean so much more when you have other beings relying on you. And again, having this belly in the background, it just reminds me that even though it can feel like so much pressure because other people are relying on us to try to make the right choice, at the end of the day, we just have to go with our gut instinct. And what we know at this point just has to be enough. And the third card that we applied in the last paragraph of this opening intention, it mentions each day, each moment is a blessing. Every day I am reborn. One step at a time, I let go of one layer at a time. So we have the Fool card here. Not only is this a baby salmon depicted in the Fool card, but we also see a very pregnant, very old salmon up here. And I'm learning so much about animals because, again, super city slicker here. And Joe works as a conservationist. And apparently Marty actually worked as a salmon researcher before creating tarot decks. So it's just so fascinating that Marty's past background came through in depicting salmon and other things throughout this deck. So I'm learning that this is a very pregnant salmon because salmon turn red like this when they're pregnant. I guess when salmon are born, they go out into the world, into the ocean immediately after they're born. And then when they're ready to lay eggs, they are really pregnant like this, and they swim back upstream to go back to the place that they were born to lay those eggs. And actually, soon after laying their eggs, it takes them so much energy that pretty much is the end of their lifespan. They pass away at that point. But even after having passed away, their bodies still release a lot of nutrients that contribute to the rivers and the riverbanks and the trees and the plants in that area to be even more luscious than they would have been without, these salmon's input. So it's really fascinating to remember that nature has so much checks and balances, or it just all builds off of each other, that the salmon's lifestyle and lifespan and what they do contributes to our worlds, and again the riverbanks and the trees up there. So this was a really fascinating lesson to learn from this Fool card. It also adds almost a little bit of bittersweetness or sadness because we see this baby salmon going out into the world at the same time that we see this very pregnant salmon going back to lay more eggs and then pass away. So yeah, that was a really fascinating 3 cards that we talked about. And the last activity we did, in addition to this reviewing the opening intentions, was just doing a simple 2-card spread. I know that there are other deck interview spreads that are 5 to 7 cards. Sometimes a simple spread is what we need, what feels best. So the 2 spread positions I chose were where am I now and where I may be at the end of this deck study. These questions, these answers could apply to where you are now related to the Gentle Tarot, related to learning tarot in general. It can also just be related to life. It doesn't have to apply to how you are with tarot. For me, where I am now, I drew the Seed of Wands, and where I may be at the end of this deck study is the 7 of Wands. I know that the court cards in this deck have been renamed and the seeds are pages. However, as I study this deck and get more familiar with it, I want to see the court cards for what they are instead of always associating them back with Rider-Waite-Smith. Mari renamed the court cards for a reason, and I want to respect that reason and try to internalize and integrate that knowledge and see these seeds of wands and cups and thunder as seeds instead of pages. So I hope as I continue getting more familiar with this deck, I can build more associations about what the seed means, separate from what a page, a traditional Rider-Waite-Smith page means. Okay, so interpreting these cards, right? Where am I now? The Seed of Wands. So I see there's a manatee here. No, not a manatee. I thought it was a manatee, but Jo corrected me. She said it's a seal. And let me look at the guidebook as well to be super accurate. The guidebook mentions that this is a spotted seal. I am the spotted seal, ready to lead the way. My creative passion is contagious. Let us swim together somewhere new. Let us play. So oh my gosh, my earring fell down again. Ugh, the backing fell out somewhere. I will get it later after I'm done filming. And I can see all of that playfulness and openness in the way that this seal is depicted. It's looking up into the sky, the sun, looking forward, and the posture is very open. I love that there's a rainbow down here and a rainbow up here as well. So yeah, I do feel a lot of joy and openness and the aspirations that this card is depicting here. Now, where may I be at the end of this deck study, the 7 of Wands? Interestingly, I pulled the 7 of Wands for a friend just 2 days ago, so I'm flabbergasted that the same exact card came up again today, so soon. The 7 of Wands, where might I be at the end of this deck study? I see, feeling more confident, feeling more grounded in myself. I really love that there's also openness in this pose, just like there's openness in this pose here. And it's almost like there's a sense of pride in standing behind the work that you've done or the passions that you're putting out into the world. Even standing behind the things that you're choosing to burn. Look at this person, owning it. So that was the introductory reading I did, starting off my deck study. So that's a bit about the Gentle Tarot deck study I wanted to share. Again, I hope to make videos about this when we conclude our voice chats every week. because again, it'll help me practice like talking and getting in the flow instead of over planning sometimes. If you'd like to join along, feel free to, of course, comment on any of these videos. If you have the deck yourself and or if you've seen other people on YouTube talk about the deck, I'd love to hear about your opinions or what you've learned from other people in the comments as well. If you'd like to join us in the voice chats every week, every Thursday evening, we mainly congregate in the Sass Witches server. The Sass Witches server is meant for secular and agnostic and skeptical witches. It's okay if you don't want to join that Discord server and join our voice chats there. That's why I'm also making these videos to, again, share the knowledge and recap all this stuff. But, you know, if you are interested, I will leave a link to the Sass Witches Discord server in the description. Feel free to join, and you can tag me and say hello in there, and I'll let you know when the next Gentle Tarot deck study voice chat is. Besides that, I think that's all I got for today. I'm really excited to start this journey and get to know my new pals better and enjoy different activities with friends instead of just doing a solo deck study, because the days are getting shorter. We can see it's like nighttime already, hella nighttime. It'll be nice to have a sort of social activity going as well to beat the, you know, the seasonal depression that comes with having shorter days and less daylight. I'm really looking forward to this deck study, and I hope you are ready for the videos and the future chats and the future rambles I will provide on this channel. Well, that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching. Bye!